the mighty and resilient Merrimack River, carving through the communities of our great region. My name is Linda Lorden, proud president of Merrimack County Savings Bank, and like the river that serves as our namesake, we're a constant yet ever-changing presence. Because to us, it's bigger than banking. It's about powering communities and putting people first. It's about knowing where you came from and where you're going. That's Merrimack style. Visit us at themerrimack.com.
The views and opinions expressed by A Little Bit Culty are those of the hosts and don't reflect the official policy or position of the podcast, right, Sarah?
Correct.
Any of the, quote, fire content, I prefer lava content, provided by our guests, bloggers, sponsors, or authors are of the opinion and are not intended to malign a religion, a group, a club, an organization, business individual, anyone or anything, unless, Sarah?
You're a douchebag.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Also, we're not doctors, psychologists, or wizards. We're just two non-experts trying to make you a friendly, informative podcast based on our experience that we've turned into wisdom. Okay?
Good talk.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Sarah Edmondson here.
And I'm Anthony Ames, a.k.a. Nippy, Sarah's husband, and you're listening to
A Little Bit Culty,
a.k.a. ALBC, a podcast about what happens when devotion goes to the dark side.
We've been there and back again. A little about us. True story. We met and fell in love in a cult. And then we woke up and got the hell out of Dodge.
And the whole thing was captured in the HBO docuseries The Vow, now in its second season.
I also wrote about our experience in my memoir, Scarred, the true story of how I escaped NXIVM, the cult that bound my life.
Look at us, a couple of married podcasters who just happen to have a weekly date night where we interview experts and advocates in things like cult awareness and mind control.
Wait. This does not count toward date night, babe. We got to schedule that. That's separate.
So there's 2 days we got to hang out?
We do this podcast thing because we learned a lot on our exit ramp out of NXIVM. Still on that journey, and we want to pay the lessons forward with the help of other cult survivors and whistleblowers.
We know all too well that culty things happen. It happens to people every day across every walk of life. So join us each week to tackle these culty dynamics, everywhere from online dating to mega churches and multi-level marketing.
This stuff really is everywhere. The cultiverse just keeps on expanding, and so are we. Welcome to Season 5 of A Little Bit Culty, serving cult content and word salads weekly on your favorite podcast platforms. Learn more at alittlebitculty.com.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean, hanging on to the wind, my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know I won't.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of A Little Bit Culty.
It's a podcast about cults.
And other things that are culty. We just had such a fun interview, and Nippy's like, I felt a little bit bad because he was a little left out.
Oh, it was girl boss time.
It was hashtag girl boss, hashtag boss babe.
But I kind of feel like by the end of it, we came up with a new definition of what it means to be a girl boss.
Which was?
Well, people are going to have to listen to the episode to find that out, Sarah.
That's so true. Stick around and find out.
But don't by now.
Cash me outside. How about that?
Oh my God, really? Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil. If you don't know what
Okay.
that is, just Google Cash Me Outside. How about that?
Today's guest
Tell us about today's guest, Nippy.
is Emily Paulson.
Emily Lynn Paulson.
Emily Lynn.
She's a badass boss babe. I know I'm saying this tongue in cheek.
But you could have been her and she could have
Yeah.
been you in the organizations, respective organizations.
We are each other's doppelgangers in another parallel MLM culty universe. I was so excited when we connected initially over the social medias. And
Social medias,
still haven't met in
doing its
person, but
thing.
I feel like we're friends. You'll see in the video if we posted on Instagram that we also have very similar matching haircuts, which means that we would have been very easy.
Which means very little.
But no, it means we would have recruited each other easily, for sure.
It was the boss babe cut, like the Rachel in the 90s.
Yes,
You
100%.
just walk in and say, can I get the boss babe cut?
It's a look. It's a vibe.
It is a look.
It is a look.
As most of you know, we've done some episodes on multi-level marketing. Sarah, why don't you take it from here?
Yeah, so for those who don't know what it is, it's a term used to describe businesses that involve selling products to family and friends and recruiting others to do the same. Emily will give another example. We'll dig deeper. We're going to unpack it and circle back and unpack it some more.
Okay, that's enough. Too much packing. This is good to know for today's episode, during which we'll be talking to Emily Lynn Paulson, the author of Highlight Reel, Finding Honesty and Recovering Beyond the Filtered Life, and her forthcoming book, Hey Hun, Sales, Sisterhood, Supremacy, and Other Lies Behind Multi-Level Marketing. out in May of 2023.
Emily is here to tell us about the very thin line between MLMs and cults.
Well, actually, Emily says that they're one and the same.
It's actually a $180 billion industry of legal and illegal pyramid schemes that governments both support and protect. Even the UN takes money from MLMs.
When she's not writing books, Emily is busy giving TED Talks or spending time with her 5 kids and husband in Central Oregon.
I think mothers of 5 kids are the actual boss babes. Y'all, I hope you have as much fun as we did. So without further ado,
Emily Lynn Paulson.
welcome to Emily Lynn Paulson, the bossiest of the boss babes. That's what your title is going to be. What do you think of that?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I'm so glad to be
The
here.
final boss.
Are you glad to be here? We're so glad to have you.
Yes.
I was trying to think. I was telling Nippy about how we met. Like, I know not really in person, but like, when did we actually connect was the real question.
I started listening to your podcast and got your book. And obviously I saw The Vow. So it just kind of all worlds collided when I realized that Nixium was an MLM. I initially saw your New York Times article, right? Like, so I knew all that, but everything was like sex cults. And I didn't understand that it was an MLM until I started watching The Vow. And then of course I just fell into the rabbit hole of your podcast.
But wait, Nippy, we have to address Nexium wasn't an MLM because MLMs are unethical.
Right. Oh yeah, totally. Well, and they're not pyramid schemes because pyramid schemes are illegal.
Yes. Yeah. This was one of the first things. I don't know if you know this because I didn't get into it in my book, but that I was in an MLM before Nexium.
No, I did not know
Yes, I was. And I don't talk about it too much because I still have family members in it.
that. Oh,
But it did make me like ripe for success because I already had a lot of the sales skills.
well, and then did you think, oh, it was just the wrong MLM? Like this one will be the right one.
Well, not only that, we were told that it wasn't an MLM.
Of course, which
It
is
wasn't
the
enough.
biggest red flag of all. Like
Yeah.
if someone says this isn't an MLM and it clearly is, like that's the biggest red flag.
Yes, but this was a different era of MLMs. Like my mom signed me up when I was in university in 97, and I didn't really start like working on it till like 2001 or 2. But I only did it for a couple of years. This is before your era where it was like all about the hashtags and the social media and the wine and the whole
Yeah.
gestalt of that.
When it was just like you invited someone over to your house or they hosted a little party for you. I mean, it
Yeah.
could only infiltrate so far. Social media
Yes.
really made it blow up. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a different experience in that way, but there's so many overlaps in broad strokes that I feel bad in advance for Nippy because he's just like,
Yeah, I'm going to be the robot, just kind of chiming in here and there. But I do have some questions.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to know, had you guys met while we were in our prospective MLMs, who would have enrolled whom?
Oh, I think Sarah.
You're a formidable foe. Emily.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
In this
Sarah would have enrolled me
yeah,
because I think, you're attracted to what you're attracted to. And I think Sarah's personality in general, I'm like attracted to that, right? Like in general as a human being. And I think attached to the possibility of a community, possibility of growth, possibility of friendship. I mean, that's what I was looking for when I joined. So no question, would have been the one to join. I would have been in Sarah's downline.
oh yeah,
So it would have been Sarah and Emily.
yes, and I would have scooped her
Yeah.
up. She's exactly the bright light we were taught to look for.
I
I know, bright light and
uh.
also big network, and her why was strong.
My why was very strong.
Yeah,
God, all these things. It's like I'm trying not to like throw up in my mouth when I say them back, but it's so true. It's all of that it's all the same stuff.
it's all the same stuff.
Yeah, but you got to talk about it to get rid of the gag reflex.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Because it becomes less cringy when you humanize it.
And that's totally why I loved your book so much, because you really just took it all. You take it all on the chin. Like so many people would duck and run.
Oh, yeah.
Oh shit. But maybe that's also why we're meant to be friends, because we're just gonna like bear all.
Well, that's how you turn your story into wisdom. You have to eat the crow. And then I think once you tell the story where you're emotionally honest and you take responsibility for what you did, it then allows you a certain credibility in the space where people go, oh, this is a person who's turning what they recognize they participated in to wisdom for other people to not do the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think throwing myself fully under the bus is like the way that I can tell the story without it being like, oh, you're telling me what not to do, or you're condemning me for my behavior. I mean, this is fully my story. And it's funny when, the criticism, which I don't read reviews or anything like that, because you just don't go there. You don't read the comments under the byline articles, but the criticism that comes through is like, oh, but you were part of it. You were part of it. You were scamming all these people, which I know you've heard this before too. It's like, and now you're profiting off of it or whatever. It's like, I could have just quit and never said a thing, but nothing changes that way. Like, it doesn't change. The fact that I succeeded, air quotes, or made money doesn't change the fact that I'm allowed to talk about it now. Right. And that's the only way anybody can be informed going forward.
And you're actually one of the more qualified people to talk about it. Normally, those people look at like you profited one way that was, in your own admission, egregious and quote unethical. And sometimes those people don't feel like you get to go thrive again.
Right.
Only this time you're taking the same skill sets that allowed you to thrive in one domain and putting it in another, and you're turning it into a positive. So
Right.
you don't ask for permission for those things. You just got to go do it.
No, I have written a book before, and it was very much, this is all the shitty stuff I did when I was in addiction. Right. And so I had the experience of being able to put that story out there and knowing that not only was it cathartic and helpful for me, but it did help other people. So I already knew going into this that I wanted to do the same thing on the same scale that I feel like I manipulated and harmed people unknowingly. I wanted to be just as loud the other way. Right.
I feel like I've said the exact same quote, just as loud.
Yeah.
You have.
Yes. This is my doppelganger. Well, listen, we're obviously big fans of the book, and we'll be talking a lot about that throughout the podcast. But for those who are new to the scene here, or maybe have been living under a rock and don't know what an MLM is, I mean, I actually still find that some people, they don't know the term MLM. Like they have friends who do it, but they don't know that's what it is. You want to give us a little Cliff Notes for the 12 people on the listening who are listening who don't know what it is?
Yeah. So I will say everybody knows what an MLM is, whether they know or not.
Right.
So it's basically an unsalaried workforce who has to pay into a company to promote products that they don't get paid for unless someone actually buys them. So it's, what you see on social media is be your own boss. I've got my own business, my own small business. And that's the exact opposite of what it is. It's a huge corporation, and they make their money by collecting people. They have, people buy a business kit, and then the money isn't made selling products. The money is made by then getting more people to buy the business kit and buy into the business. And you don't own your own business. You are just an unpaid contract worker. And so the way multi-level marketing makes so much money is that once you buy the business kit, they have your money. You never have to do anything. And that's how these corporations thrive. They literally thrive because so many people fail, and they have a 99.7 failure rate across the board, meaning people who purchase lose money immediately. You're already in the negative, and most people never actually turn a profit.
Don't you wish you'd known all that when Becky invited you to have a drink?
I had, and I describe this in the book too, is I had an initial I think we all have that little, oh God, it's one of those things. It's one of those things you see on social media. And at that time it was really booming, 2013, 2014. It's like you saw MLMs a lot. And it was, again, it's like you wouldn't know it was an MLM. It's just like, oh, so-and-so has a skincare business. So-and-so has a supplement business. So-and-so is selling leggings. It's all this crap all the time, right? And you might not know what it meant at the time. But for me, I was like, ooh, do I want to be that person? But what got me was I did see that she'd gone on some fun trips. She was seemingly earning money. She was seemingly doing really well and having a lot of fun. And when I met with her, there were a bunch of people there. And it was like, oh, so whether someone had said to me, oh, 99.7% of people fail, I would have been like, but look, right? Like it was that cognitive dissonance of, but I see that she, someone I know, who I trust, is doing well. And why would she lead me astray? So I don't know if knowing that, because I could have looked it up anywhere. Again, most of these statistics that I talk about in the book, they're all readily available. It's all out there. And what keeps people stuck and continuing to enroll is that hope that maybe they can be the, 0.3%.
So, highly recommend the book and all the juicy details. Will you give us a little cliff notes of what hooked you in terms of, and I always find this so interesting, like what was going on for you emotionally that was a draw and appealing in terms of being a mom and all that comes with it?
Yeah, I think that's the reason so many moms get roped in is because I was looking for something at that time. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I was at this point in my life where, we just had our last baby. We've got 5 kids and
Wow.
we were done having kids. And I knew that going back to the workforce was not in the cards for me because my husband had a demanding job. Childcare for 5 kids would have been just stupid. And I didn't know if I had any other options, but I was in that place like I think a lot of women are in where you just feel like you've lost your sense of self a little bit. So I didn't know there were any options out there for me. So when this was presented to me, I was like, wow, not only can I escape like tonight, tonight I can get out and actually put makeup on and clothes on and leave my kids behind and go out and meet her for drinks. But gosh, this is like the hope that I can do this all the time. It was just that need for something outside of myself, outside of my mom life that I was really craving. And it was bundled in with this possibility of also earning money and trips. And so it was just the hope of something outside of my life at the time where maybe I felt very overwhelmed. I felt underappreciated, like I think a lot of young moms do. I had a lot of hope that it could be the magic solution.
I was just noticing it's one of the consistencies that we saw in the leggings, Roberta Blevins one.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like there's fertile ground for moms in this.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
It capitalizes on mom's capacity to network. Like there's a joke I have with like a lot of my male friends. I'll be like, all right, I'll talk to Sarah, you talk to your wife, and we'll figure out when we're going to meet next. And
Yeah.
it's not a joke because they're the social coordinators. They do everything way more efficiently. And then, reservations at this restaurant that night. And it's like, so it seems like there's an infrastructure and like already kind of natural there that's capitalized on.
Oh yeah. I mean, the mental load is huge. And the ultimate issue here is that there aren't systems set up for women, right? There aren't women's unpaid labor carries our entire economy. I could go on about the patriarchy and all that shit.
Right.
But it's because there's a lack of resources. There's a lack of choices. And so when you're given something that even if it's a really shitty choice, but it's there, it's going to look enticing. It's going to look like something. And I think MLMs do a really good job of not only filling those pain points of being the mom who's at home or being the woman who's, struggling with her career and balancing home life and all that stuff. You feel like you're doing something wrong no matter what. You stay home, if you work, either way, someone's going to say you're doing the wrong thing, right? But it also packages all the pain points you have just as a female. Like, hey, do you need to lose baby weight? Have you put on some pounds? Have you, whatever, how's your aging? How's your skin? Like you got some wrinkles, got some crow's feet? I can fix that too. So it packages all of these pain points into one, which is what makes it so predatory. And then it's your friend inviting you, right? Or your kid's teacher, or it's these people in proximity to you that you feel like you can trust.
And they're in a group and they wear cute little booties.
Yeah.
And cute little jeans and little hats. Like I've seen pictures and I'm like, if I was super lonely and wanting friends, I would totally want to be part of that. Now I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. I mean, it does.
Super cringy. Yeah.
It's like when you're, changing diapers at 2 a.m. or whatever, like, and you see a picture pop up on Facebook of people on a cruise ship or whatever, it's going to draw you in no matter what they're selling.
Damn Facebook. I mean, more Instagram now, but that's a real pain point for a lot of people. It's just the inherent FOMO of like, look what everyone else is doing. And also, like, it's not real.
It's not real.
Sometimes, sometimes there's some truth in like, okay, then maybe they're in, the Bahamas or whatever. But like, you don't know if they're happy or not. You don't know. That was actually one of the things in your book that I loved about like showing how what you posted on social media and that was going on all around you that really wasn't as glamorous. But nobody posts that because that would be stinking thinking.
Right. There's always a shred of truth in everything, right? Even like Nexium, there were some fundamental things that were very interesting and helpful and good. And yet there were also a lot of things that weren't. Like that's what drew you in. Like the system as a whole was very flawed. And so all of these things that you do, it's like, okay, yes, I did go on a trip, but it wasn't really free and I got taxed on it. And, I got drunk and all these other things happened. And like, it didn't really help. But what you saw on social media was very pretty, right? It's just not the whole story.
Tell us about some of the red flags, some of the most cringy things that happened along the way that you didn't really understand what you were looking at till now.
Looking back, obviously you can see a lot in hindsight, but even as I was going, even the first night when I signed up, I think it's not that you don't necessarily see red flags. Your intuition does pop up, but it's again, what MLMs are really good at is squashing them immediately, squashing any of those thoughts and preempting any negative thoughts you're going to have before you have them. So they might say like, here's this script, for example, like, here's the script of what you should post on social media. Well, your immediate reaction is like, ew, that's not even my words. That's gross. But they'll say to you, okay, this is going to feel weird. This is going to feel weird, but this is how you step out of your comfort zone. And this is how, so everything you do, then when you go into it and you're cold messaging someone and, you feel gross about it, you're like, oh, but they told me I was going to feel this way. So all of those intuitive feelings are squashed from the get-go. And that is really dangerous because then you just lower the bar, right? You're like, oh, then you're just sending cold messages all the time. It's no big deal. It's not that you've grown or become stronger or whatever. It's just you've squashed your intuition even more. And you have people all around you then who are doing the same thing. And so you're in this sea of people who are doing the same thing. And then it just adds to that cognitive dissonance of, well, they're doing it too. And I guess it's not so bad because now what you're doing is just normal. It's just normal, like business stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Also, you're in an echo chamber, so you're going to get those people to reinforce it regardless.
Yeah. And then they start with if people do say something negative, if someone does come back to you, they're just a hater. They don't want to see you succeed. It's very black and white. It's never well, maybe they just like you, but they just don't want to buy these products. Maybe they already have something they like. There's never any rational thought behind it. It's very much thought stopping. And, if you hear a no, it means not right now. It means they just don't understand yet. They don't understand the benefit that they're going to get out of it. So just keep working, keep talking to them. And if they say something negative about you, they just don't want to see you succeed. They're just jealous.
And we're going to play a little game shortly about how to handle some of those thought terminating cliches and MLM sales tactics. Before you do, I want to mention a point that really stuck out to me that I hadn't considered before, just in terms of how like this is a society where we're taught that like, safe boundaries and no means no, especially as women, right? But here's a place where no does not mean no.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
There is a lot of internalized misogyny in MLMs. I mean, there's a lot of internalized misogyny in our world, right? And so I think it just comes with the territory when you're with a group of pretty much all white affluent women, that there's going to be internalized misogyny there. And so you have that as like the foundation. And then you are told that you know best, this company, this system, this team, this whatever structure that you're in is the best. And it's the best thing for you. It's the best thing for everyone. Everyone should want to do this.
And we know best.
And we know best. And if they say no, it's because they're not educated. If they tell you it's a pyramid scheme, they're not educated. They just don't have the information. So don't feel bad about that. They just don't have the information. So then when you say, someone says no to you, someone says no to your opportunity, says no to your products, you automatically are like, okay, well, it's not that they don't want them. It's that they don't understand them. They don't understand this company. They don't understand these products, and they will. And so it's very cringy when, again, you're taught consent and you're taught the meaning of no in your life, but yet you're supposed to never take no for an answer in this one avenue. It's kind of a mind fuck,
When you say internalized misogyny, you mean amongst the women, enforcing it on the women?
Oh, for sure. Yes, for sure. And I saw this, many times, in different things that happened. I described one situation in the book where, we were at a convention and something was slipped in her drink and she had to go to the hospital. Nothing happened to her, thank God. But, this group of women were like, oh, but did you see what she was wearing? And so that kind of stuff where again, you're in this meritocracy where you are in charge of your own destiny and manifest your own, all that stuff, where it's your work that gets you to this place of success. And so if you do, God forbid, you're sexually assaulted or something, then the mindset is, well, it must have been something you did. Like that's how fucked up it is. And how could it not be when you are supposedly in charge of your own success and in charge of whatever happens to you? You control your own destiny. Well, why wouldn't you be in control of everything that goes on around you? And anything bad that happens to you must be your fault too.
The other red flag that I saw, and I'm pretty sure this happened in our MLM too, although I didn't really make the connections till I read your book, actually, was the religious undertones, or in your case, overtones, that it's also a bit of a mind fuck because it's all your own destiny, you're the boss babe, but it's also God.
Oh yeah.
So how does that work?
The religious manipulation. So again, if you don't succeed and you're a Christian, you're a faith-filled person, and this is God's plan for you. And you see so much of this in social media posts. Like, I'm so glad God put this company in my life. I'm so glad God blessed me with this and Jesus, all this stuff, right? So if you don't succeed, what does that say about how God feels about you? If you believe God put this in your life, that's a whole nother level, because obviously religion, like, believe whatever you want. Like, I'm fully like, whatever makes you happy, go to town. But religion in its worst manifestation can be very dangerous. We know that. And so you're adding that to this business. And of course, I use air quotes because it's not a business, but that's what everyone says. It just has all the markers of being potentially harmful, right? And you're going to take that on yourself that, oh, God must not love me very much because God wanted me to do this.
Hashtag not blessed.
Not blessed.
Yes, indeed. And that was also very cringy throughout your book in the best way possible, as I was thinking about all the different people that I was overseeing and trying to help, but also, had my own intentions for them. And one of the big red flags that I saw is just your recognition of seeing how, like, you were helping them, but also, like, is it really what's best for them?
Right. And like you guys have said this many times too, is you really think you're doing the best. Nobody goes into these and they're like, well, I'm going to screw some people over. And then I'm going to, nobody goes into it like that. Everyone goes in thinking, I have hope that this could work for me. And I'm going to tell my friends about it because I have hope for them too. So yes, you're benefited from them joining, them buying products, whatever. But I really did want my friends to succeed. I really did want that. So then when you see that it's not actually happening, it's really hard because I'm like, okay, I've done all the things and I'm succeeding and they're not. Why? Well, I've been told it's because they're not doing the work. Well, I'm seeing it with my own eyes. It's really hard to reconcile that.
You made a comment in one of your interviews where, in order for me to make money, other people had to lose money.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of like that's a hard thing to sit by and watch when you're trying to help these people and you're recognizing that you are doing well because they're doing that.
Right.
And that's the way the structure is set up. Talk about that. How was that process like?
It was a long process, a very long process. And once I finally got to that place, and, part of my story obviously is, going through alcohol addiction, and part of my awakening was getting sober and seeing that a lot of the amends I had to make were around this business, and a lot of the things I'd been saying I couldn't say anymore, and kind of aligning myself back with my intuition before I joined. When I joined obviously I was drinking wine when I joined, right? So it was like my intuition came back online and I was able to understand like what I was doing on a deeper level. And yet still I was like, okay, but yet I've done all these things and I'm here, I'm succeeding. And, I want to help these people succeed. And so you see in the book, it's like I put a lot of money back into the company. I put a lot of money back into the people. And I thought for a long time, like, how can I sell people this and then not stay? How can I not stick it out with them? Even if they're not succeeding now, I still believed it was possible on some level. There was just cognitive dissonance for a long time until it was just so obvious that it was not going to happen. And it really was all of the people at the top, every convention, every year was the same people. It was the same people in the stands watching and hoping. it never changed. And if this opportunity is available for everybody, then you should see more people growing and more people rising to the top. It never happened. So it was a very slow process. And it was a slow process of knowing, like, what do I do now? Because then you have people saying to you, don't quit. The only way you fail is if you quit. You built this. Why would you walk away from this? And it's like, okay, well, I did. Like, and also when you're making money, it's like, how do you just walk away from it? Right. Once you get acclimated to, like, you make the money, you spend the money. And again, a lot of the money was going back into the system, these trips, the car, all this stuff, the clothes, the gifts for my team.
You got to pay to play.
You got to pay to play. Yeah. And so it was slowly untethering myself from, not spending as much. I wasn't putting as much back into the system. I really started distancing myself from it. And again, like, asking myself, like, how much money is worth feeling this way?
Mm-hmm. Also, you hadn't done the math yet on the profit and loss statement, which I thought was really interesting.
Ooh. You're never encouraged to. You are never encouraged to do a profit loss statement, which should be like the first thing in a legitimate business. It would be the first thing any business coach would tell you to do. And, even in the companies, every MLM company has their own income disclosure statement, every single one. You can look it up yourself. They're all abysmal. They are all abysmal. And your uplines, the company will talk it away because they'll say, well, lots of people just join. They buy the kit because they like the products. They don't plan on selling. They don't plan on making a profit. But the thing is, the company knows, right? The company knows the number of people selling, the number of people buying, the number of people who are actively working and not working. So they could disclose those numbers. Why don't they? Again, because it's abysmal, because most people lose money. And it's really damaging because then there's this whole sunk cost fallacy, right? Of, you convince someone to join, like, hey, it's a bigger discount, whatever, just join. They'll be fine. Don't look behind the curtain. And then they're like, well, I already spent this much money. I'm already this invested in this way with these people with this money. And then it makes it even harder to leave.
This is the golden age of cult recovery. The more we speak up and share our stories, the more we realize we are not alone. Your voice and your story can empower others. This is Sarah, and I'm proud to be a founding collaborator of the #IGotOut movement. Learn more at igotout.org. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or never miss yoga. Maybe it's getting 8 hours of sleep. I mean, that's my personal and everyone's dream, isn't it? Well, I definitely have some non-negotiables. Like, I'm in Vancouver right now, and I'm spending literally as much time as I can outside in nature. #cold pools, #crushing it. Nature is a non-negotiable. Not enough time in the fresh air and the trees around me, and I start to feel not great, not myself, not grounded. Therapy day is a bit like my nature walks. I try to not miss it, and I know I'm just going to feel so much better all around if I make it a priority. I get so much out of it. It helps me put my worries and anxieties in their rightful place and helps me clear my mind so I can focus on what I really need and sometimes what I don't need. Like, I don't need to be overbooking myself just because I hate to say no to people. You know what I mean? Thanks, therapy. Thanks for helping me see that. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Look, even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/culty today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/culty.
Meals bring people together, but for many families, providing their next meal can be a challenge. You can help by participating in Macy's annual Feeding the Hungry food drive. All proceeds go toward local food banks and families. Now through January 31st, you can purchase an icon in-store or online, or watch out for the blue Feeding the Hungry shelf tags, where a portion of your purchase will be donated to local pantries. Together, we can combat hunger in our local communities at Macy's.
In Nexium, we called that buying back the dollar.
Yeah.
And there was a metaphor, the same metaphor of, like, you're waiting for the elevator and you could take the stairs, but now you've waited so long, you keep waiting for the elevator and then you waste more time I forget how the dollar thing worked, but it was something about like,
It's like a stock. You invest in a stock, but the ROI is not coming.
and you keep trying to pay more to get the dollar back, but at a certain point, you just have to cut your losses.
Pay well, it's, you got to spend money to make money. That's what you're told is, and there's all these stupid analogies on real businesses, like, oh, well, if you had a store, like a store on the street in your town, and you opened it, you'd have to pay rent, right? So buying the products is just the rent on your business. So it's like, what? But those things aren't equal, but that's what you're told, and it makes sense because you're like, well, that's true, right? I'd have to have a website, and I'd have to have a store with rent, and okay, so I'll just buy all this shitty like collagen pudding, right? Like that makes sense. It doesn't make sense.
I was going to save it for the end, but I feel like now we're just going to insert it right here because I feel like it would be fun. So we're going to play a little game called What Would You Say Now? So Emily, you're the MLM distributor and I'm your
Okay.
upline. And I'm going to say to you what you just said. So don't worry about the collagen pudding. Like if you had a real, an actual business, you'd have to pay rent. So it's the same thing. What would you say now?
I would say, no, it's not. Go get therapy. No,
I was going to say, go fuck yourself.
I would,
No.
what I would do now with
Yeah.
anything is ask more questions. I would say, explain to me how that's the same. And spoiler alert, they wouldn't be able to explain because it's not the same. And then it would have the added benefit of them maybe going, oh, gosh, I've been saying this and it actually doesn't make sense. Where did you get that information?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, definitely asking questions is better than being snarky, but I kind of feel like being snarky. Can you give me one? Now we'll flip the tables and I'm the distributor and you're the upline. Something about like, okay, well, I'm going to give you an objection. I just don't feel comfortable calling these people because like they're my friends. I don't really want to like get money from them. And I don't want to do these cold calls.
Well, Sarah, you joined me. Do you think I'm bugging you?
Kind of, yeah. It's a bit annoying.
But you see how that is turned around? It's like, oh gosh, then you feel bad, right? Like,
Right,
oh,
yes.
I said that and you're
Right.
right. You aren't bugging me. And so I'm not bugging my friend either.
They're common sales tactics. Were you guys given common sales tactics?
Yeah, like give me the comfort zone one. I want to respond to that.
So Sarah, I noticed you have
Sarah.
not been, I've been telling you to go live on Facebook and talk about your products. I noticed you haven't. And I know you feel uncomfortable, but nothing good happens in your comfort zone.
Emily, I would agree with that when it comes to like, maybe speaking in front of people publicly or like running a marathon or something, but this is going against my intuition. And that is that's not my comfort zone. That's my intuition. So I'm going to listen to that and try a different career, but I wish you all the best with yours. How's that?
Yeah. Then it would be like, well, you just don't want to succeed. You must not really want this.
You know
right?
what? You're right. I really don't want this. I don't want to be hustling eye cream out of my trunk for the next 10 years. So I'm going to go, pursue other options.
Yeah.
I just
What could you say to that?
What do you say to
What
that?
other options, Sarah?
I don't know. Anything but this. This pyramid scheme.
Anything. I mean, when you look at the numbers, anything with a minimum wage job would be more money than 99% of people are making for the amount of hours they're working. Like anything. You could do anything.
I do think that's like the worst crime is that these people who aren't succeeding really think that they're not doing something. Like there's something they're not doing. They're not trying hard enough. They haven't found their Madison. I love the names in your book, by the way. Becky, Madison, Vanessa. Like it's just like, so you're missing a Stephanie. I feel like there should be a Stephanie in there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
No Karen?
I
Karen?
wanted Karen, but my editor was like, that is too on the nose. You cannot use Karen. I'm like, oh, fine.
Kimberly.
Kimberly is our Karen. Yep.
Yeah. What's happened to Kimberly? Is she still around? Sorry, I just wanted to find out about Kimberly and then you can ask her a question.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah. She's still around. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, totally. She was nasty.
Sarah, you're salty.
No, she was nasty. No, well, I'm salty because like I relate so much to Emily and our journeys are so similar. And it's just like the characters are so similar. But the sales thing, I actually think that like it's just basic sale, like MLM sales, which I don't know if you know this, but like Keith did door-to-door stuff. He was in Amway for a bit. Encyclopedias, CBI was totally MLM. And so all the sales stuff that he taught us came from all the different like basic sales things, like even feel, felt, found.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You want to tell our listeners what feel, felt, found is?
Yeah. And again, this is all stuff like tactics that work in, just direct one-to-one direct sales, not multi-level. All these things are just sales tactics and they're legitimate and there's nothing wrong with them, but they're co-opted to sell something predatory, right? That's what
Right.
makes them, it's like you said, what is it? Like the tool in the hands of a chef or a murderer, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
the knife is a knife.
Yeah, it's a different use of it. And so feel, felt, found is something, even like with my kids could be like, say my son comes to me and is like, I hate math. Math is hard. Okay, well, you know what? I felt that way when I was your age. Like I hated math too. And I understand how you feel. Like first is validating. Like I understand how you feel. I felt the same way when I was your age. But what I found is when I just worked at it a little bit every day, it got a lot easier. And then I started enjoying it. Right. So that's a very legitimate use of feel, felt, found. It's like, I empathize. I've been there. My experience is the same as yours. And here's what's possible. Right. So it offers that hope. So in an MLM, it's just used to squash very legitimate concerns.
Right.
You don't want to spend $10,000 going to a convention?
Yeah, you don't want to spend $5,000 on leggings, Oh, I felt that way. I felt that way too. I didn't want to spend $5,000 either. So I understand how you feel, but I found that by putting it on a credit card, and hiding it from my husband, then, he didn't know about it. We didn't get in a fight. And then, I lost my ass anyway.
Success.
Then I was able to be
Yes.
successful. It's just a way to apply it to that situation.
So
Yes.
there's a point where like, okay, you can do feel, felt, found and these tactics. And in your mind, you're doing something positive for these people. And now once you have the perceptual shift that, and I don't know if you felt this way, you felt like you're being predatory or it didn't feel right. Did you feel like that there was someone, quote, above you that knew they were leveraging your goodness to go carry out making them money or promoting the company? And did you have any kind of moment of trying to show them that? Or like, I guess it's abusive hierarchy or abusive system, but a lot of people aren't cognizantly going, I'm getting in this to abuse system, like we said earlier, but there must be someone who understands it's a con, it's a gag, and keeps doing it. And obviously when people leave, they, like you did, they go, oh my God, this is a con, this is whatever. Is that one person, or is it just in a system that people buy in and it isn't easy to pin on one person, one entity, et cetera? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think there's different levels of knowing and different levels of denial, right? Like I can say that about, my own upline who is like a lovely human being, wonderful person, legitimately wanted the best for me, legitimately thought and still thinks that me being in the company would have been the best thing. Very much did not want me to quit because she really believed by quitting that was the only way I failed. That like she believed that and still does, right? So I think it's just the level of denial, not letting that little bit of critical thinking in that maybe I'm not right about this. And then are there people with a level of knowledge? For sure. Like I got to the point where I was like, oh shit, I know this is a scam now. And how do I untether myself? At what level am I okay being involved? And the added problem, with that is once people get in that deep, they're then controlled in many other ways, right? Like maybe again, their church group is involved. Maybe their best friend is involved. Maybe their entire friendship circle is this MLM. What do you do? Like, I don't feel good about what I'm doing, but if I quit, I will lose all my friends. Or if I quit, like I'm actually the breadwinner now, I'm actually the one making money now. How can I quit this? And what do I tell my family? Like, sorry, you can't eat tomorrow. Right. So there are absolutely people and people I'm still in contact with who are like hoping to like win the lottery so they can leave or, just like taking steps to exonerate, get out to excise themselves from the company, or who never really fully bought all into it. So I think it's just a balancing act of how in denial are you? How much critical thinking do you still have? How much control do these people in this company have over you? And what are you willing to still do to be involved? I think it's impossible to say it's going to be different for every individual person.
Yeah, certainly case by case. Do you find it frustrating? Like Sarah and I had a couple incidents with some people that have somewhat of a platform, not that much, but they have diagnosed our leave in a certain way that's like they've anointed themselves through their own anointment. They're not really demonstrating it, that how we left was, I forget the word they used, but they were judging how we left, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, self-protective.
Yeah. But they're doing it from a place of their own echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, so someone in your echo chamber who's validated all the time and saying Emily is XYZ. And my response was, wait, I'm diagnosing you. It's not like I don't acknowledge your moral superiority that you've anointed yourself over me by saying, I'm quitting is failing or whatever it is you heard. It's like, no, you're still in your echo chamber and you're still anointed with your self-anointment. And now you're judging us. Like it doesn't have validity. But because they're surrounded by people that keep validating them, to your point, they won't ever see it.
Right. Gosh, there's so much there. But no matter what you do, I think you will be criticized because, me speaking out, you guys speaking out, you guys just leaving, it challenges everything that other people need to stay, right? Because if they acknowledge anything you're saying, like even the littlest bit of, oh yeah, they were, that sucks that she was branded, ouch, like they can't acknowledge that, or it will be, again, it'll be negative. It'll be giving validity to what you're saying, and they cannot look at it. So I mean, the second I left, it was criticism of, oh, well, why didn't you leave earlier? And, oh, well, why didn't you do this? And why didn't you do that? And it's like, it's automatically going to be a defensive reaction because they need to dismantle, me, my character, what I'm saying, or they don't have anything to go off of. Right.
Yeah. Once they critique your character and not your behavior and your ideas, you know that you're in a different conversation.
Or ad hominem attacks.
Yeah. I don't participate in those because they're not having good faith conversations at that point.
Yeah.
Hey there, listener. Hope you're enjoying this episode and that you're remembering to hydrate, stretch, and unclench your jaws. Sometimes listening to conversations about heavy topics can really make you tighten up, And remember, a little bit culty loves you. Also, come hang out with us on Patreon after you finish this episode. It's fun over there. Fun is good. And now, here's a brief message from our sponsors.
The Frankies were a picture-perfect influencer family, but everything wasn't as it seemed.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here asking for help. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs. Ruby Frankie is his mom's name.
Infamous is covering Ruby Frankie, the world of Mormonism, and a secret therapy group that ruined lives. Listen to Infamous wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or never miss yoga. Maybe it's getting 8 hours of sleep. I mean, that's my personal and everyone's dream, isn't it? Well, I definitely have some non-negotiables. Like, I'm in Vancouver right now, and I'm spending literally as much time as I can outside in nature. Hashtag cold pools, hashtag crushing it. Nature is a non-negotiable. Not enough time in the fresh air and the trees around me, and I start to feel not great, not myself, not grounded. Therapy day is a bit like my nature walks. I try to not miss it, and I know I'm just going to feel so much better all around if I make it a priority. I get so much out of it. It helps me put my worries and anxieties in their rightful place and helps me clear my mind so I can focus on what I really need and sometimes what I don't need. Like, I don't need to be overbooking myself just because I hate to say no to people. You know what I mean? Thanks, therapy. Thanks for helping me see that. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Look, even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/culty today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/culty.
It's funny the things people criticize, like, someone was like, oh, well, you made all this money. And sidebar, any article, any interview, they're meant to be clickbaity, right? So the articles are always going to be like, woman makes $1 million and leaves her. And so people are thinking like I'm this person sitting on this pile of cash, right? Like, that's not exactly how it works. It was over
Yeah, same.
6 years. Like the money went all back to
Yeah.
the system. It's like, not like I have this pot of gold now that I'm like, ha, 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 but people will just look at that and go, oh, well, you scammed all these people. You should have given that money back to them, or you should have published this book for free. It's like, bitch, like, do you understand
know what it takes
how
to write a book?
publishing
No.
works? Like, do you understand how money works?
If you get any of that shit, just send me the link and I will jump in there and comment. And we should just have each other's back that way because I get it.
I don't think giving them a platform and acknowledging them and getting into Twitter wars does anything except raise their profile.
It's true.
Yeah.
We're in a day and age where attention is the commodity, and normally people who build a skill set get the attention based on the skill set. And people who have qualified journalism and degrees are being lumped in with people who just want clickbait.
Yeah. And, Sarah, obviously, like having read the book, like, again, I throw myself completely under the bus. It's all my experience. And, I'm not condemning any one person or thing. And so when I immediately see someone who's like, oh, I can't believe you write this, you're shitting on other women or something, automatically it's like, oh, you have no idea what's in the book. It's interesting because the negative feedback I get is from people who would never read it anyway. And so I can't even take those opinions. They don't even go in my brain.
Right. Well, they're not based on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things too. Those, again, these thought stopping cliches of like, someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. Right. And yes, that is true to a point. But the way it was co-opted in MLM was if someone criticizes what you're doing, they don't matter. Instead of saying, oh, this is my mom, maybe who, or my sister who loves me and is just giving me some feedback that, maybe my posts are cringy. You're supposed to just put that filter on it of, oh, your opinion does not matter. Your opinion is none of my business, instead of being constructive feedback. It's a very valid comment that to not take other people's opinions who don't know the situation, but then it's applied to people who actually care about you and do know about the situation, right?
Mm-hmm. I also find too, the more you talk about it is more of an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you're not what's being said.
Yeah, exactly. Like again, and this was something I learned in like the recovery process is, the best apology is change behavior. And I can't do anything about the things I've done in the past. I can't do anything about the fact that I joined, good intentions or not. That doesn't matter. Like I can't go back and do anything about it. So all I can do now is try and help educate people. That's it.
That's your amends.
Yeah.
Well put.
Your extraction, your waking up process wasn't, one thing. It was many things over time, as it usually is, many incidences on the shelf that eventually falls. All of those things are very gripping in your book. It really is a great read. And admittedly, it's the first book I've actually read because it's not on Audible yet. It will be on Audible by the time people listen to this, right? Because you're going to narrate it.
Yeah.
And damn you, Emily, I had to read your book. It's the first book I've read in probably 15 years. I have an incredible bookshelf, but I only listen because I have like ADD and can't sit still. But I finished your book and it's really good. And that waking up process is very descriptive. And I highly recommend people reading it for themselves and getting inside your mind and all the different decisions you made. People should read the book. But if you want to give us a couple points of what eventually caused the shelf to break and how you escaped.
Yeah. So again, I felt like my intuition came back online and a lot of the behaviors that I wasn't comfortable with, like, the cold messaging, obviously I couldn't like have drinks with clients anymore because like I wasn't drinking anymore. So a lot of my behaviors changed. But by the time that happened, I had already assembled such a large team underneath me. Again, once you get to that top of the pyramid, it's not based on your own work anymore. So I was still kind of floating as I saw things I didn't like, as I kind of exited myself. I was like, okay, I'm going to write my first book. I'm going to go into recovery advocacy. I'm going to, go into writing, and I'm going to kind of put this on the back burner. And so I kind of thought I could just put this MLM on the back burner. I'll just collect a check until it dries up. That was like what I thought was going to happen. But then the pandemic happened. And that's when just there was so much predatory behavior around trying to recruit people into MLMs, not just from my company, but just across the board. The FTC sent letters to so many companies because it was all this COVID misinformation, like take this essential oil and it'll cure COVID, or join this, you lost your job, that sucks. Here, join my pyramid scheme. Like all of these just very predatory messages. So that was gross to me. And then again, it was a lot of this co-opting beliefs of your uplines that were not vetted by you at all. And I saw all of this, anti-vax propaganda. And again, like you have your own beliefs about whatever. Like if you have beliefs about medical freedom, that you have your own, doctor and your own research, and you have come to these conclusions yourself. Like I'm not talking about you. What I'm talking about is your upline says, don't get the vaccine. And then you don't. And then you tell your team not to. Like that's fucked up.
Yeah.
It's the group think.
The group think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it took this crazy turn. And then all of this, like, again, like political stuff. And again, it's not about the politics. It's not about the behavior. It's about why you're believing those things. And at that point, I was like, I cannot be involved in this. And what was happening at the same time is I was still at the top doing nothing. Like I had gone offline. I had stopped like recruiting, selling publicly. People didn't even know I was like still involved in the company. I just totally gone dark, and I had still earned like the top title. And I was like,
That's not right.
like, that's not right. That's not right.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and that was it for me, where I was like, it really is not my own doing. It is not on my own work. It is not on my own accord. And I cannot be associated with this like anymore for another second.
Oh, so good. I'm looking at my notes. There's a couple things that I wrote down, like just as I don't have questions, but I just wrote performative feminism.
Oh God, yes.
Can you just speak to that about like, what does that mean to you?
So performative feminism is again like this girl boss, hashtag boss babe, be your own boss. It's selling this dream that you can have it all, right? And then what's really there is your time is completely dictated by the company, right? You have to, it's not that, oh, I can work this into the nooks and crannies of my life. It's you have to hustle around everything else. And you have to make it look like this is, again, it's that supremacy. Like this is where you want to be. You want to be home with your kids and working too. You want to have this financial freedom. And yet you're like posting pictures in the hospital when you're giving birth because for some reason you have to work all the time. It's deeply, deeply anti-feminist to have no control over your time, right? And feminism that doesn't include everyone is not feminism. So these MLMs are not feminist on any level because they require a level of socioeconomic status, right? You have to have money. So it's not feminist. It's not offering opportunities for all women when you are not available to all women, right?
Also, it feels like it compromises the feminine spirit in a lot of ways.
And yeah, because there's the system of, it's not collaboration, it's competition. It's elbowing your way to the top.
Super catty.
It's super catty. It's making money off of your friends. It's collecting people. Like, what is feminist about that? Nothing.
Sounds like a bunch of alpha males fighting over the
It
steak or
does.
something.
Like, I mean, just exactly. And that is what it's upholding. Ultimately, at least, it's sold as like it's so funny how 9-to-5s, like real jobs, are maligned in MLMs. Like, oh, stick it to your boss. No corporate America. And they're corporations. These MLMs are corporations. And not only are you not an employee who gets benefits and an actual salary, albeit maybe it's shitty, maybe it's shitty benefits, maybe it's a shitty salary. I'm not saying corporate America is great. But what I'm saying is these people actually get paid. When you're in an MLM, you're an unpaid 1099 contractor. And your
Wow.
money that you pay, it's pay to play, goes to a corporation, right? So it's just, again, it's that cognitive dissonance of you're supporting the man, you're supporting the patriarchy, you're supporting these white CEOs.
Yeah, and they are all white.
Are they
CEOs.
men?
Yeah.
Are they men that run it?
The
Oh my
maj-
fucking
God,
God.
I mean, look, you can look up any MLM.
Almost all of them.
Almost
just-
all of them are the CEOs, and the upper management are men. Yes.
That kind of answers the question I was asking earlier. Like, are these people at the top totally cognizant that, hey, we're going to run this con here and we're going to leverage women's femininity, call them girl bosses, because we know that they can enroll and we know that there's these areas of vulnerability between this demographic? Do you think it's that conscious?
Oh, I think the people at the top there for sure. I think the women, because again, it's 85% women are in these MLMs, right? And there's a reason for that because again, women don't have a lot of options available, especially, women of childbearing years, right?
I was going to say, yeah.
so this is seen as an option. So they are sold as like, this is a way to be empowering. This is a way to earn money for yourself. But the people who are making money, again, are the people at the top of the pyramid, the very few, and the corporations. And yes, the corporations are completely cognizant of it. Like the reason they use an MLM model is because they make so much money from it. And it's also
Yeah, for
funny
sure.
that reps will say like, oh, we're a $1 billion company. We're a whatever, multi-million dollar company, $1 billion company, but it's the corporation that is earning that money. It's none of the women that are doing all of the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Douglas Brooks?
Douglas Brooks. Oh,
yeah, she talks
yes.
about him in the book. She quoted him.
Okay, so they're obviously abusing a power, and you can quantify how they're abusing the power. What have you noticed systems are in place that protect them? Like, why isn't there a certain accountability if it's so egregious what they're doing?
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, this is like our third episode on MLMs, and it's pretty obvious that like there's systems in place where it's very hard to stop what they're doing.
So MLMs are protected on so many levels, right? They are protected politically. There's a lobbying organization, which you probably know, direct selling organization, that supposedly regulates MLMs. It doesn't, right? It's a self-regulated body. It does not regulate direct selling. So, they're still an almost $200 billion industry. So they're legal pyramid schemes.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's huge. And so it's bigger than like Hollywood. It's huge.
I know. I was just
yeah. So the government supports them and protects them. Lobbyists, politicians are all tied up in MLMs, and people don't realize like that, like even the UN takes money from MLMs, right? So there's too much political power. Again, I think it all comes down to money. It comes down to politics. It comes down to the people who are involved. And, that's why they're protected. Like they don't have an incentive to say, hey, government, go look at these things that we make lots of money off of. And, we get money for our campaigns and stuff. Like, why would they go down that road? And so the way that they're taken down or investigated is on a very small scale. It's from the FTC, like investigating one MLM, like they investigate Advocare and then they shut that down, or they didn't shut it down, but they took away the multi-level component, or they investigated Vema and they shut that down. So it's a very small scale. Or going after distributors. That's the other thing is there were recently a few doTERRA representatives were fined like 15 grand for statements they made during the pandemic. Was the company fined? Don't think so, but the people were. So the company then, has this level of protection because they're just 1099 contractors. They can just go, well, they're not employees. We didn't tell them to say that, right? So they're so protected at that level, and there's no incentive. And because there have been, it was Amway versus the FTC, right? Was the first like big thing that the FTC tried to investigate Amway. And because of the way that turned out, essentially, every MLM has modeled itself off of Amway because they were allowed to stay in operation. So all other companies really model themselves off of that so they can stay legal enough to stay in operation. So there's a lot to it.
That's why education's vital.
Yep.
What chaps your ass the most about the industry?
I think it's that meritocracy, that you are you're rewarded for your own effort and blamed for your own failure. And also it co-ops, there's so many things that chat my ass. So like this could be long, but it co-ops so many of the things that are already over women's heads anyway. And I say women because again, it's mostly women. We've got diet culture and all these other things that we're fighting against all the time that are just roped into this, and again, like mommy wine culture and all this stuff that like I fell victim to that are just roped into this thing that is supposed to be empowering. So it creates this cognitive dissonance that's very dangerous. And then it's also, again, there's the financial exploitation if you're in a church group, friendships, and the way it just seeks to isolate you in an echo chamber. That was a lot of things that chat my ass, but yeah.
When did you make the connection that it was a culty experience? And like, how did you figure that out?
So I started listening to the Dream podcast.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I was like, uh-oh. That was the first thing. I was like, oh God. And then I just started kind of reading about cults, and I read Ponzinomics which had a whole background of MLMs. And so it was just slowly, I really started understanding. And then when I found the bite model, so Stephen Hassan's bite model, which I know you guys have talked about a lot. I mean, I went down the list and like I practically have it memorized because there were so many things on there that I was like, oh my gosh, there is so much behavioral control. There's so much emotional control. There's so much information control. There's so much thought control that almost every single thing on that checklist, there was something I could identify with. Yeah, that's when I knew it was a cult.
Yeah, mentioned this to somebody recently, and I'm sure you hear this a lot. And the answer was, well, not all MLMs are cults. I said, well, if that makes you feel better to say that. But
Right.
like, and we always talk about this in the podcast. Our mission is not to say you're in a cult and that's a cult. Da, da, da. It's what's happening in the group. What are the systems of control? What's the behavior from the top? And is it problematic? You don't even have to call it a cult, but you can say they're controlling the information. They're limiting my information.
They're abusing one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just looking at like, have I ever bought something that I didn't want to? 100% yes. Have I ever spent time with people I didn't want to? 100% yes. Have I ever been coerced to go to something? Oh yeah, I didn't really want to go to convention, but I was told that leaders show up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was told to buy this thing because if I didn't, I would set a bad example for my team. Was I forced to wear the same thing of everybody else? Well, kind of. Like we all were given like shirts with the company logo on them, and we were sent to these conferences where they were very scheduled, and we didn't get to sleep or eat much. Like once you really look into it, and then ultimately, and I know you guys have said this many times, is what happens when you leave? What happens when you leave? It's not that it's bad to be involved in something that's like a little bit culty, right? But what happens when you leave? Do people say, "Oh, I just wanted to check, are you okay? Good wishes, right? Good luck in your life," or do they say, "You're a hater. You are not showing up. What's wrong with you?" Like, what happens when you leave? I lost all my friends. Oh,
You're dead to me.
yeah, you're dead to me. You're a hater. So it's not that MLMs aren't culty, like they are. It's to what level have you been coerced and to what level is your own intuition being squashed and what you actually want to do? And have you even asked yourself that? So again, leaving that little window of what if I'm not 100% right about this? What if maybe there's more to this? What if my haters might have kind of a point?
You also brought up a memory for me that I'd completely forgotten, the most cringiest. And I can understand why I blocked this out. But the recruitment that goes along with both, right? But not only that, but like fighting over people as if they're commodities, and Nippy didn't have to go through this as much because you didn't really care too much about sales. Am I right, Nip? Like you were like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, also, I was kind of like, it was just too awkward. For me.
Yeah. It was too awkward for you, but you did recruit here and there.
I couldn't get over my limitations, I guess. I just wasn't.
But like how many times, especially with Vancouver being such a small city and also the acting community, like there's only so many actors in Vancouver and people who know each other. And then people would come to me like, well, I told them about it first. And then the person, well, I invited them to the intro session, but I got them signed on paper. Like getting the person on paper, like the application signed meant that was yours. The person was yours. Like, what do we own them? It's terrible.
Seriously, if there's one thing I could go back and like punch myself in the face over is those conversations.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times people who were on my team I would have to put out fires of, but I talked to her first and she recruited her and, fighting over who owns someone or she brought products from her, but she says she wants to join me. And Jesus,
so
and it
horrific.
just highlights that the financial incentive, right? Like,
yeah,
they don't care about you; they just want your money. That's all.
Ugh. Okay, what do you say to people who, like, obviously, if they know anything about you and do their research, they're not going to invite you to an MLM? I'm guessing no, you haven't been invited to an MLM. I have actually. I'm like, are you serious? Or even just another something. Is there anything that you could say to people or that you would share with people to say to people if somebody invites them to like go for wine and check out a business opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, what's your level of friendship, right? That's the first place to start is is this person even someone who's actually in my life or is it a friend like reaching out who I haven't seen for 20 years? And that's the stopping point, right? I would say now, like I would never even say yes to go meet Becky for wine, right? Because I would set up that boundary of, I know she's not wanting to have a friendship here. Okay. So that's the first thing, is just evaluate where that friendship is in your circle of people. And then, be compassionate. Like, hey, I'm happy for you that you're doing this. I don't support MLMs. If there's some other way I can support you, please let me know in the future.
I like that.
When you get out.
Yeah. When you get out, I'll be here to help you. Or here, I'll be like, here's my book. Here you go. I think ultimately, what as consumers, anyone listening to this who is like, oh, I'd never join an MLM or something, but I might like buy a spatula from my friend who's selling Pampered Chef or whatever. Ultimately, understanding that that is not support, because at the end of the day, your friend is getting very little of that sale, whatever it is. Your friend is getting very little of that sale. Their upline's benefiting someone you don't know. Their upline's benefiting, and the company's benefiting, right? So if you care about your friend, ask what your friend needs. Like, can I come over and babysit for you? Give you a gas card or something? Like, there's ways to support your friends without keeping them more roped into the MLM, because that's what you're doing if you're buying products from them. So
interesting. Yeah.
So being a friend to them and giving them support in other ways. And, unfortunately, sometimes this can make you a hater, make you the unsupportive person, but all you can do is just be the soft place to land when and if they ultimately do realize that, they're in a harmful system.
And that's so much kinder than saying, you're in an MLM cult and that's for dumb people or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just imagine being that person and feeling like, oh, well, she's not into what I'm doing, but she is so supportive and she does care about me, and not feeling judged. Because I think your book also really explains the mindset of being in it and being in that righteous us versus them. We're the best group. And anyone who questions it, especially family members, right? There's also this element of like, I'm going to prove you wrong. You think this is bad? No, I'm going to succeed at this. I'm going to get to Diamond Royal Empress Lady in Waiting level.
Yeah. So ultimately, if you see someone falling victim to this, the best thing you can do is just be the soft place to land, because the likelihood is that they're not going to do well.
Yeah. Can't say that I did that well when I left. I was so angry.
Yeah. It's hard. It is hard. There is anger, that realization of like, oh my gosh, I was brainwashed. That sucks, but ultimately I know that looking back, like the people who came at me and saying, oh, hey, you're scamming people or whatever, I would have thrown this book in a fire 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Thrown it in a fire, right?
Totally. Nippy, do you remember when we saw those? We'd only been out for a year or so, and we saw two people who were still in on the seawall on New Year's Day. And I was like, Happy New Year's. And they like ignored me and looked like I might attack them. Do you remember that?
Inner peace, Sarah. Inner peace.
And Nippy was like all calm. And then I was so mad that they totally ignored me. Like, these were friends of mine, like good friends of mine. And then I was like, shunning is not humanitarian. And Nippy's like, you can't do that. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. They're so hypocritical. You can't be a humanitarian who shuns people. They're shunning me because I left. Like, fuck you. So yeah, it's a little bit of that left in me.
I mean, ultimately, if someone else saying something about their own experience hurts you or invalidates you or makes you feel some sort of way, you are either part of it or you're in denial.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you ought to be curious.
Yeah.
Right? You ought to be like, hold on.
Tell me more.
What happened?
Yeah, ask questions. Yeah.
I wish I'd been in this emotional state when I left. So I could have been like, I'm leaving now and I wish you all the best and I'll be here if you have any questions.
There was no chance.
Of course not. I mean, I was like.
No, I mean, but that's the whole thing. That's what the calm accuser, the narcissist calm accuser has going for them. They make ad hominem attacks around your character. And then when you respond in kind, they go, you seem to be quite in a lather about this. And they make it about your reaction. And that's compounding the abuse. So it's complex. It's more complex than people like to admit because they don't want to admit that that's possible. But, that's the power of that kind of narcissist, person who's calm and disconnected because they can always look calm while you're pissed off. And you're actually the one that's feeling and emotive and has empathy when you get pissed off, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think you have to get to some level of anger when you leave these things. You wouldn't leave if you weren't like, I was in that place for a very long time where I was like, it's fine. I hate it, but like nothing, it's fine. I had to get to that point where I was like, I fucking hate this. I had to get to that point. So I think that's it's a totally normal human reaction to feel angry.
And I think it's at times normal to go be angry.
Yeah.
I was a little more comfortable with that initially than
We all have our skill
Sarah
sets.
was.
It's fine.
Yeah. You know, I guided my anger
Yeah.
appropriately, I think. I don't think I put it in the wrong
And I'm
place.
so glad you put yours into this book, Emily, because it really is a gift. And I'm pretty sure I said something really wise about why your
Oh,
book
yeah.
is so great. Will you read it? Read us the back
Do you
cover.
want me to read it? I will.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I love it, Sarah. I love it.
So this book is a must read for all women, especially those struggling with the deep ache to belong, be successful, or feel their self-worth. Hey Hun is at once a cautionary tale, an educational service, and a vulnerable memoir. It's essential reading for anyone considering joining, trying to escape, or healing from the toxic, culty structure that is MLM. Sarah Edmondson.
I'm so proud of us.
I know.
No, but
Me
seriously,
too.
I'm proud of you. But an episode doesn't go by where I don't get emotional, and the emotional is not self-aggrandizing, which it may appear to be. It's emotional because it's just like the recognition of all the shit that we've been through in different ways, and to come out the other side and be able to support each other, like actually support each other in a true sense of the world. We're not performative, not, in a gross way, just like, no, you did the right thing, and I can help bolster you a little bit in some way. Means a lot to me.
Yeah,
And I would say that's more hashtag girl boss than the other.
that is girl boss.
Like to button it up.
Yeah, when you can promote someone else and know that it doesn't benefit you necessarily, right? Like it's hard to come out of that. It's hard
Yeah.
to not see people as numbers after you've done that for a long time. So to have interactions where it's like, you know what, I like post about your book because I loved it, not because I'm getting anything out of you or whatever. Like it feels good to be in that place.
And doesn't it also feel good to see people and not like have an ulterior motive? Just like meet them, be like, oh, where are you from? Not like, what product could I sell you?
And for them to not think you have an ulterior motive. I didn't realize how on edge other people were. Like
Yes.
with, oh God, what's she going to try and sell me
Oh,
today?
totally. Well, and the real
Yeah.
friends that stuck it through those years are the ones you can hold on to.
I know. God bless them.
Really proud of you. Tell our listeners where they can find you and how important it is to pre-order, which I didn't even know when I wrote my book.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So much that goes into it. So you can get my book anywhere. Support your local bookstore. I always suggest that they can get any pre-order you want. It's available anywhere books are sold, the big box stores too. And pre-orders are really important because they show your publisher that people actually want to read the book. And it goes into, first week sales that your book can get promoted on lists and junk and all that stuff. So it is very important. So if you ever have an author that you love, doesn't have to be me, always pre-order their stuff.
What do you think, Sarah? Want to be a boss babe still?
I do.
I think I'll pass.
Two things.
I think I'll pass on the boss
My
babe.
brother, Devin Edmondson, who lives in Vancouver, loves to give my sister-in-law like boss babe paraphernalia just for fun, like little notebooks that say things like hashtag crush it and, you got this and live your best life.
Live, laugh, love.
And I feel like I can't wait to.
God, it's so awesome.
I'm going to send her a copy of this book. Those two are a bit younger than me. I'm not going to say how old or dates me, but there's a certain demographic that's like all into the hashtag boss babe phenomenon. Like just think about what would have happened if NXIVM was more like even 10 to 15 years later.
There had been dead bodies.
We didn't use social media, right?
Oh, you mean had it started 15 years later?
Instead of 1998, if it started in 2008 or even 2013, it would have been a very different beast.
Nope, wouldn't have been in it.
Well, I also don't think it would have outlasted like just the tackiness with the sashes. And one of the things I forgot to mention that she said in her book was that all of these MLMs have these crazy titles for the next level, like Ruby Director and Diamond Tiara, and some of them sound like the title of a Hallmark movie, Royals in Waiting or Lady in Wait, whatever. It sounds like a Hallmark movie. It's, where my worlds collide. But just thinking about how if Emily had been in NXIVM, she for sure would have gotten to senior proctor or even counselor or senior counselor, don't you think?
Hard to say, Sarah. Hard to say.
They'd be so checked out.
I just don't care about that.
This is not your world. This
yeah.
is
No,
this is the hashtag Boss Babe world.
Yeah, it was. But hey, that's all right. Hashtag Boss Babe.
Well, I do hope you find us on Patreon for the live Zoom with her, and
It's gonna be dope.
maybe we'll even invite Roberta Blevins and have like a little MLM three-way.
Oh my God. I'm just gonna watch. Okay. I'll be on mute. I'll have a beer, and I'm just gonna watch Boss Babes boss out.
That sounds great. Don't forget to buy Emily's book. Check out her link in our show notes. And just have a great day. Just go crush it. You got this.
TBT.
No, leaders lead. Leaders lead. Live your best life. Live, laugh, love.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean. I'm hanging on to the weight of my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know I won't.
Hope you liked this episode. Let's keep the conversation going and come hang out with us on Patreon, where we keep the tape rolling each week with special episodes just for Patreon subscribers and where we get deep into the weeds of unpacking every episode of The Vow.
And if you're looking for our show notes or some sweet, sweet swag or official ALBC podcast merch or a list of our most recommended cult recovery resources, visit our website at alittlebitculty.com.
And for more background on what brought us here, check out Sarah's page-turning memoir. It's called Scarred, the true story of how I escaped NXIVM, the cult that bound my life. It's available on Amazon, Audible, narrated by my wife, and at most bookstores.
A Little Bit Culty is a Talkhouse podcast and a Trace 120 production. We're executive produced by Sarah Edmondson and Anthony Nippy Ames, with writing, research, and additional production support by senior producer Jess Tardy. We're edited, mixed, and mastered by our rocking producer Will Rutherford of Citizens of Sound, and our amazing theme song, Cultivated, is by John Bryant and co-written by Nigel Asselin. Thank you for listening.